you know that by the end of time there will have been, let's say, just a million simulations and one original history.
Sure.
And that all of these simulated people and the original history people all have subjectively indistinguishable experiences. You can't from the inside tell the difference.
Right.
Then what, given that assumption, would it be rational for you to believe? Should you think you're one of the exceptional ones? Or should you think you're one, amongst the larger set, the simulated ones?
Or should you think that it just has not happened yet?
But that would be equivalent to saying that you would be one of the non-simulated ones.
You're talking about in the universe.
Yeah.
In the narrow case of just the Earth, if the historical record is accurate, if it's not a simulation, then it seems very reasonable that we're just dealing with incremental increases in technology that's pretty stunning and pretty profound currently, but that we haven't experienced a simulation yet. Isn't that?
Well, that's
also
how it looks, right?
Sure.
Yeah, but that's also how it would look if you were in a simulation. But for most people for whom it looks like that, it would be the case that they would be simulated.
Why? Why? Why would we assume that there's a simulation? We could assume that there's a possibility of a simulation, but why would we assume the simulation hasn't occurred? Why wouldn't we assume the simulation hasn't occurred yet?
Right. I mean, so it is a possibility that we would be in the first time segment of all of these. Like,
and wouldn't that be more likely if we?
I'd say no.
Oh,
I mean, so
motherfucker! Randomly selected individuals.
Yeah, so then you would bet you're one of the simulated ones, because like a randomly selected ones, if most are simulated, most lottery tickets are.
But why are we assuming that most are simulated? This is where I'm getting confused.
Well,
because if
we'll have been simulated by the end of time. Like,
by the end of time.
This is like a timeless claim.
But why already, when it hasn't existed yet? Why isn't it likely that a simulation hasn't occurred yet? That we are in the process of innovating and one day could potentially experience a simulation, but why are you not factoring in the possibility or the probability that that hasn't taken place yet?
Yeah, I mean, so it's in there, but if you imagine that people follow this general principle of assuming that they would be the ones in the original history before the simulations had happened,
right?
Then almost all of them would turn out to be wrong, and they would lose their bet
once a simulation has actually.
Right. I mean, if you kind of integrate over, the universe.
But there's no evidence that a simulation has taken place. But there is evidence that you're alive. You have a mother. You have a father.
Well, I mean, those things could be true in the simulation as well. I mean,
could be, but isn't that a pipe dream?
Yeah.
But we know that if someone shoots you, you'll die. We know if you eat food, you get full. We know these things. Mm-hmm. Assume. Why would a simulation be the most likely scenario when we've experienced, at least we believe we've experienced, all this innovation in our lifetime? We see it moving towards a certain direction.
To try to argue for the premise that conditional on there being first an initial segment of non-simulated Joe Rogan experiences and then a lot of other segments of simulated ones.
Yes.
That conditional on that being the way the world in totality looks, you should think you're one of the simulated ones.
Why?
Well,
why? Why? If they're gonna create a simulation, there has to be a time before the simulation is created. Why wouldn't you assume that that time is now currently happening when you've got a historical record of all the innovation that's leading up to today? If we understand...
Yeah, no, I mean, so I think the historical record would be there in the simulation, but there...
But why would it have to be there in a simulation and not be there in reality?
Well, I mean, it could be there in the simulation if it's a kind of simulation that tracks the original, yeah. If it's a fantasy simulation, then, maybe it wouldn't be there.
Right, but it could just be reality. It doesn't have to be a simulation.
Right, I mean, in some sense it would be both, right? I mean, there would be one Joe Rogan experience in the real original history, and then like maybe a million, let us say, in simulated realities later. But if you think about your actions that kind of can't distinguish between these different possible locations in space-time where you could be, most of the impact of your decisions will come from impacting all of these million Joe Rogan instances.
Why would you assume we're in a simulation? This is where I'm stuck. I'm stuck. There's no proof or no evidence that makes any sense to me that there is currently any simulation. What would point to the possibility that it's more probable that we're in a simulation? This is what escapes me.
Okay, so I could mention some possibilities that would...
Okay.
No, so the most obvious, like, imagine a big window pops up in front of you saying you're in a simulation. Click
Okay,
here for more
that would be
information. That would
wonderful
be pretty
information.
conclusive.
Oh,
Right.
motherfucker. Yes. Would we not assume that we are in the actual state that we currently experience? That there is no simulation and that we're moving towards that simulation? That one day it could be technologically possible.
But one in a million.
Really? So one in a million is that life is what you experience right now. One in a million.
No.
Would be any simulations. Why would there not just be 7 billion people experiencing life?
If I understand your
No.
option
My
correctly.
option is that nothing's happened yet.
Yeah, but there will have been.
Maybe, but not yet.
Right, but
So it's all. I still don't understand that. Why? I'm gonna have to process this conversation for a long time, but I appreciate it. My brain's broken. Bye, everybody.